we come here and we're so shut down and disconnected from our own intuition. So your soul might have opted, into the experience of being able to expand in one's intuition and to experience as part of themselves. And then if that's not happening naturally, then, we might get a physical illness to deal with that, to slow down and to be able to listen to what happens on the inside. So yeah, often crises is used as a tool for a person to finally relate to themselves.
Even though we do have negative experiences here, it's all for a reason, and there is a purpose, and there are as many reasons as why someone would choose this experience as there are people, as I understand it. I had a question in regards to when you're regressing someone. I found it fascinating. The way Dolores explained it was that, let's say somebody had an abduction experience, right? And it was like 5 years ago, but you're regressing them to 5 years ago. They're remembering the experience, and then you're asking them to talk to the beings that are there. But because everything is happening all at once, it's as if the abduction experience is happening right now. And the beings are aware that you're communicating in their time right now, for their right now, to have that conversation with you, which is super fascinating.
Isn't it? Because you're talking about like how everything happens all at once, and it is like that, Technically, there is no such thing as past lives, and when we do a regression, it's really sort of bridging into another congruent life that happens at the same time. But what I'm also, and it really influenced me as well, like when I talk to a person's higher self, they always say, like, no matter how horrible the life is, that a person opted into it, or their soul did.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
And that the Earth experience, is for many is a very coveted space to be, because of this unique structure that we have here, that we can have the perception that time is linear and that we can go through this life. It's a very sort of limited focus from the perspective of the soul, but it allows us to learn through the contrast and the duality that we find in the 3D experience. And it's not found anywhere else. And Earth is very coveted because there's free will here, and there is such a wide variety of experiences here.
Hey everyone, Christian here, and welcome back to the podcast. I have a very special guest, and his name is Jeroen. Hailing from the Netherlands, he's delved into the world of Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, also known as QHHT. Having had the privilege of learning directly from Dolores Cannon herself back in 2006, with numerous years of experience and countless sessions, Jeroen continues to revel in the magic of discovering new revelations and witnessing the healing phenomena weekly. As a level 3 QHHT facilitator, he is also certified in Reiki, EFT, EMF balancing technique, and the Quantum Touch healing. Armed with a bachelor's degree in art therapy and a master's degree in spiritual psychology, Jeroen not only conducts individual sessions, but also trains and mentors others in the QHHT practitioners. Group events for meditation and past life regressions are also part of his repertoire. And in his quest for knowledge, he has explored various modalities such as Kriya Yoga, Satnam Rasayan, shamanism, bioenergetics, and more. All these tools are wielded in the service of love to help others live more authentically. And on a personal note, he finds joy in communing with nature, creating art and dance, and capturing inspiration through photography. He has been happily married to a man for many years, and he extends a warm invitation to collaborate if you're in the greater Los Angeles area and are planning to visit. And with that, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And for those who haven't yet, please like, share, and subscribe. And let's get started. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, and thank you. And I'm so impressed for you pronouncing my name so beautifully and correctly. That doesn't happen.
I try. I try. I am fascinated by other languages and stuff, and I am jealous that you're from the Netherlands. I always wanted to go visit and live there. But just to begin, especially since you've trained directly under Dolores herself, that's like my first question. What was that like for you? Like being able to work with her, what was that like?
Well, amazing, of course. In 2006, like Dolores Cannon wasn't the household name that it is now. So she wasn't very known. I just happened to pick up a book that was written by her, and and I just really resonated with it, and looked her up and found out she was teaching in the Netherlands at the time, like 3 months away from the moment I picked up that book.
That's amazing.
And so I'd read, by the time she came, I had read like probably everything that she had written so far. And so when I met her, I was kind of starstruck, or like, you know, she was wearing a ring. In one of her books, she explains that she has a ring with a star, and she was given this ring in a very special circumstance. And during a session, it was explained that it came from the stars, from her star beings. And so I was looking at that ring, and just being in her presence was amazing. You know, and she had this demeanor of like somebody's grandma.
Mhm.
And at the same time, you know, she would, I mean, I was in the Netherlands, and I was, you know, I didn't know about United States culture that much. And I just thought she looked like a white Midwestern church lady, you know, with a little perm. And so, and then the contrast with what she would be talking about, it just tickled me. I thought it was so funny. Um, and I was really inspired by her, like her confidence in the wisdom that she would just talk about. Like it was like matter of fact, you know, this is how it is. And she was talking about this whole other world that up until then I had been searching for, but hadn't found anything about. So
Right.
this was really, yeah, super inspiring. And so for me, it was, you know, such a remarkable experience because, you know, I was in my 30s, early 30s at the time. And, you know, up until then, I just like trying to do life and not really being successful at it or enjoying it very much. And, you know, this was my first learning experience that was enjoyable. I was like, wow, if school could be like this, you know, this is really amazing. I was so inspired. I just absorbed the information like through the pores of my skin almost. And this was such a contrast to my school experiences where I was always like a C student and just barely did enough and had to do like makeup courses during summer. I just was bored and didn't like it. But this was it for me.
Wow. And it that's very, very synchronistic that she would be there right after you picked up that book and was looking into it. And I mean, looking into this stuff, I don't believe in coincidences now. Like I just it's everything happens for a reason, you know, and it's crazy how our journeys individually start. And I found her work after I some people know the story about me already, but I had a download after a very, very strange dream. And it was just like a knowing. I don't know how to explain it, but just it was like you have to look up near death experiences, like do it now. And I started doing that. And it was just a very random thing to think about, not having seen a video or anything. And I just started going into it. And that led to near death experience, people sharing their near death experiences, and then hypnotherapy, and her name came up more than a few times, and then the UFO stuff. And then I know she connects to both worlds, and she mentions near death experiences a lot. And I've read a couple of her books, and it's amazing. That's pretty awesome.
No coincidence.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences at all. Um, so how has the QHHT technique impacted your understanding of consciousness?
Oh, it's vast. I mean, it's so hard to describe that. I mean, the basic premise of it is that, you know, I'm really convinced that we live in a benevolent universe, that um, the driving forces of consciousness are really very positive and always um, driving itself to expand and to explore and to experience. And so, yeah, to change my perspective, like if I were to like zoom into my own life, like how how I perceive like the challenges and the difficult experiences, you know, before I might have been like, you know, why is this happening to me? And oh my God. And you know, and I still have feelings, of course, when challenges happen, and it's cannot be fun. But I know that whatever happens is there to sort of prop me forward into a bigger expansion and a better understanding of who I am.
Right.
and to recover the parts of me that have gone missing in this life that are are me. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah, that answers my question. So just to ask, because I've seen some of your videos on TikTok, and I've seen, and by the way, I'm going to share your TikTok here too. I'm going to put it up on the screen here.
Thank you.
But you're welcome. What is one of the anything that you're willing to share? What is one of the strangest, or like, what do I mean by strange? Like when you regress someone who, because I know what can happen is some people don't even look into this stuff, UFOs, higher beings, near death, they don't know anything about this stuff, but life circumstances bring them to you, and they want to get a regression session, and they end up saying very strange things sometimes. What is one of those cases, like one of the strangest cases maybe that you have, where someone is sharing something maybe from another world, or from like a past life perspective?
I mean, strange is my normal, that's all my normal.
Yeah.
So, this happens quite a bit. Something that pops up right now is, in some sessions, people have a kind of connection where but they start channeling like other beings, like this other being will step in.
Mhm.
And I remember working with a woman who had some really odd, like, consciousness issues. Like, she would have like weird gravity drops in her experience and other things happening. And, and I ended up talking to this very sort of robotic, metallic sounding being. I mean, her voice changed, and it started talking to me about her brain, and that, this being and the other beings that were there were trying to figure out what to do with her brain. They could like raise her frequency, but then they didn't know what the consequences would be, or they could like stabilize it in a lower frequency. And so then we checked in with her conscious self, and she wanted to raise it. So we did, and she emailed me back like for a week after she'd had these weird zap, and gravity sort of drop experiences, and then it leveled out. um so yeah, that was, I mean, it was kind of dramatic because the voice changed so much.
Yeah.
But it's quite common, that a voice will change, when I'm getting to speak with this, an ascended being or an alien or an energy body. So
Right.
it's usually happening when, say a person went through a like a typical earth past life. They went through the death experience, and then they enter, what we refer to as the in between life space.
Right.
A lot of people, explain it. They ask them, "What are you doing here?" And they say they're waiting, and I have them check their environment, and there might be some guides or ascended masters or aliens showing up. And this is a perfect space to sort of quiz these beings. I'm very curious by nature. So I would want to know like who they are, why they're there, how they're related to my client, and can they help out? And oftentimes, like again, somebody's voice will change, and I get this very personal perspective from this being on who they are and why they're there. It's fascinating. Um, I mean, I can keep going like about sessions. I'm trying to remember if there's a
Oh,
recent one.
please. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry. No rush or anything. You're totally fine to open up.
So I remember one session that came up. A woman went to a life where she was a reptilian being, and she was from the draconian star system. And she explained that a faction of her people had sort of gone dark.
Mhm.
They aligned themselves with external power, and she didn't like that, and so she had escaped. She was like a renegade reptilian, and
Right.
she came to Earth to be stealthy. So she took on a human body, and this was back in the 1600s. And the higher self explained later it happened in an alternate timeline of Earth.
Okay.
But she ended up working as like a church worker, like assisting like a priest.
Mhm.
And she did this because she could see into people's energy bodies, and then would sort of sound specific frequencies into the energy bodies to help them heal and evolve. And this woman is a sound healer in this lifetime. So that
That's
was very,
interesting.
isn't it interesting? Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool to see how all of those stories connect. And in regards to the whole robotic voice thing and stuff, that's what I like. In her book, she talks about that, and even mentioning that sometimes with the old tape recorder she would use, sometimes weird sounds or static would happen.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on.
Yeah.
Also, one of my favorite sessions is also when people go into like an abductee experience. They
Hmm.
might remember or they might not,
Right.
because traditionally it's been so shrouded in fear, and
Hmm.
we've been led to believe that it's all like bad.
Yeah.
Um, I remember a woman who went back to this current lifetime at a moment where she was younger, and she was taken aboard a spaceship, and there were these sort of gray-looking beings around her that
Hmm.
were taking tissue samples and her eggs from her ovaries. And so I try to ask these workers or these little gray aliens to like explain what was going on, and they weren't very talkative. They were more robotic.
Right.
And then I had her look around, is there anybody else? And it was like a taller being with a more nurturing presence. And so it explained that my client, before going into this lifetime, her soul had contracted to work with them. And it explained that they were um, like an expression of humanity, but from the future and an alternate timeline.
Right.
That they had sort of blew up their planet. And also, they, at some point in human history, they had decided that all the upheavals that we're experiencing right now um, were caused by people just feeling too much and being too much led by their emotions. So they started kind of breathing that out of humanity.
Hmm.
And so it changed their physiology, and they lost the ability to procreate like we do.
Hmm.
So they cloned their people. And at some point, the cloning wasn't working anymore. And they realized that they had dead ended their evolution. And so they went back to our timeline just before the split off happened. And they started to like hybridize
Yep.
between humans. And so I've learned from other sources that there's different generations in the type of hybrids, and some of them are just observing life on Earth, and some of them are on the planet to learn from human existence, but also to help out. What they've explained is that the blend of DNA to have both the sort of evolved mental capacity of this future expression of humanity paired with the emotional capacity of us right now is really beautiful in being able to manifest, because emotional energy is very powerful, and to be able to focus it with such sharp focus, it can help people create and manifest things to an accelerated degree.
That's awesome. And I completely agree. I've also, one of my favorite channelers, Daryl Anka, he channels Bashar, being called Bashar. And he's mentioned that. And he said that what you were just describing is his civilization is the result of that work. And it's weird because I was talking to a friend about this, and she was confused because she's like, well, if the Greys are doing this and this is still happening or whatever. And I told her, it's interesting that we want to try to explain it linearly, but at the same time, everything's happening all at once. So it's like, because they already are doing that and have done that, his race exists in like another like timeline, another frequency, and it's already happened. So it's very interesting to have that synchronicity that you're bringing that up. So and also, um, I wanted to bring, I had a question in regards to when you're regressing someone. I found it fascinating. The way Dolores explained it was that, let's say somebody had an abduction experience, right? And it was like 5 years ago, but you're regressing them to 5 years ago. They're remembering the experience, and then you're asking them to talk to the beings that are there. But because everything is happening all at once, it's as if the abduction experience is happening right now, and the beings are aware that you're communicating in their time right now for their right now to have that conversation with you, which is super fascinating.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and it goes the same with healing. I remember it might have been that same session where I asked for healing for the client,
Hmm.
and they were explaining that the healing, happened back in her timeline,
Right.
um, like when she was younger. Even though I'm, from my perspective, asking them to do it now. So it's
Yeah.
like sometimes it's really like our human mind tries to like quantify things, um, you know, in the way that we've been, conditioned to do, and
Right.
it just sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. Like my mind melts
Yeah.
regularly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something I love about Dolores, because she she doesn't always talk about things the way she writes, at least in the books that I've gone through, matter of factly, because there are parts that she still doesn't understand and she has questions, and sometimes she repeats questions so that she can get a better understanding. And she'll even put in the book like, hey, this is also for anyone, scientists or quantum physicists, anyone who can make sense of this stuff. I'm putting this all in here for future generations, which is pretty awesome. And has anyone, out of curiosity, because I've noticed people mentioning this, like Bashar has mentioned this, some former intelligence people have mentioned this, even an abductee that I don't know if you heard of, Chris Bledsoe, had mentioned this. Um, Beautiful person. He had an abductee experience, and NASA, CIA, they've taken an interest in this gentleman, and yeah, he's even been called live on TV because he has the ability to call them, and
Nice.
he will like go into a meditation, and then they appear, and you see the lights in the sky moving, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not making this up."
Oh, I'm
And
gonna look him up.
yeah,
That's great.
he has a movie coming out now, and they wanted to make it fear based, and he's like, "If you're gonna do that, I'm not gonna do it. Like, it's not a fear
Good.
based thing."
Yeah.
And um, the timeline thing is it's just popped up, and I know that nothing is set in stone. We can always change timelines based on who we are in the moment. But what's interesting is that Bashar had mentioned that when there is enough momentum energetically, that it's unlikely to change, then we can say something, because normally we wouldn't give predictions. And he mentioned an event around 2027, 2026, possibly UFO related. And I had used dowsing rods, and I connected with spirit, and I've never gotten a case or an event this strong, because they were answering my questions very like someone was there. It wasn't me doing it. I even have it on camera. And I asked them about the event, and they said that yes, there's something to that, but they won't share what it is, just like Bashar won't share exactly what's going to happen. They're leaving it up to us kind of to go into that moment and see for ourselves. But have you at all heard anything about that, or anything about disclosure even?
During my sessions, you mean?
Yeah, during your sessions.
It is they keep it kind of vague, the same.
Yeah,
That it is going to happen, but there's different timelines or possibilities that it's going to take place.
right.
Um, so yeah, I don't have like one answer for that.
That's okay. Yeah, just
Yeah,
curious, just in case I got a probe, because like I'm
no,
so
it comes
curious.
up, but I hear so many different like timelines of it that it's kind of
Yeah,
like
all meshed.
I just record it, and then I don't keep track of it. I really feel like our now is the most important, you
Right.
know, for for us, and what is important or what comes up in sessions, like every session, is to really love ourselves. That this is what is changing the world. This
Mm,
is calling in, like people call it 5D, or like a higher consciousness. It's not by fighting or
right.
telling other people what to do. It is about loving oneself and embracing one's own authenticity. And this might sound really trivial, but it's a radical thing to do in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
We all come in knowing exactly what we are. You can see it in a baby's eyes. I don't know about you, but when I look into a baby's eyes, I can feel and see their soul. And so this is
Right.
all of us when we come in. And then, the journey starts with a set of parents that have been traumatized and shaped and formed by the kind of world that we live in, a
Right.
world that to me is very much survival based and based on traumatic experiences.
Right.
So we are told and we see in our environment like a lack of examples of us being exactly what we came here to be. Um, and it can be as simple as, like, for me, like being gay, being in a
Yeah.
society that doesn't reflect that back to me. Like, I didn't feel like being myself was a possibility based on the examples that I face. And I'm from the Netherlands, and it's not a very homophobic society, but for sure, all the sort of, call it, spiritual parts to me weren't reflected, and it
Yeah.
happens to be a big part of who I am. As an example of the journey that we all go through, like, all of who you are is not going to be reflected in the world around us, because we think in terms of what is right and what is wrong and what is appropriate and what is not, and that causes us to shut our own light down, like,
Yeah.
bit by bit. And then by the time we turn 5 or 6, that's completely finished, and then we identify with feeling small and not good enough, and then we have to do the things that we are used to doing on this planet, which is derive your worth or power from external sources, appreciation, acknowledgement, through presentation, achievement. And this is a very um, disempowering relationship to have to oneself, because you never get to really be with oneself and feel yourself and know that you're good and worthy just as you is, because you're so busy sort of buying back into this external image of worthiness.
Right.
And so when we learn to love ourselves, when we first sort of take care of the more sort of earthly concepts within ourselves, like gender, race, religion, sexuality, all that stuff, then the other parts can start to come in, the more etheric, spiritual parts. And this is when we really get to experience ourselves as a part of Source. And having sort of purged ourselves from the internalized judgments of the world, and finding out that we are a part of Source, we then no longer will want to, as we have stopped wanting to harm ourselves, or realized how we've harmed ourselves with those judgments and release them, we will then want to stop harming other people, because we know that everybody else is the same, including animals and the planet, that all life is so very precious. And we will want to stop harming other people, the planet,
Mhm.
animals as well. And to me, that is this is why I love doing the work that I do, because I feel like this is what QHHT does. And to me, that is a way to anchor a higher vibration on the planet, or a more loving vibration on the planet. And I think that's what's going to make a change.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that for the people that don't understand this stuff too, is that uh, when someone has a near-death experience where they leave the physical body and then they come back, uh, they they're shown or given this universal awareness, this understanding that we're all connected, we're all one, that coming here and seeing each other as separate is just an illusion, and that when you hurt someone else, you're really hurting yourself. And some people experience what's called the life review, and they will get to become the people they've influenced or affected in some way, intentional or unintentional, not out of punishment, but so that they have a greater understanding of what's happening. And they also, just to tie this back earlier, because I know some people might be new to this, they also mentioned that everything is happening all at once. And even though they're sharing their experience with you, telling you what they experienced on the other side, it's the the time is an illusion. So everything's happening now, and what we call like the future or the past is all happening concurrently, and it's all being experienced. And even though we don't have the awareness of it, like someone in the 1800s, they're still living out their lives doing something, and we can make these connections to past lives or future lives. And and from what I've been learning, looking into all this, love is love, and I think it's silly that we still have some of these, issues today. But I know it's for a purpose, and we're all growing. We're all at different levels of awareness, and it's kind of amazing to have like people like you on here, and other people like becoming more open. It's kind of crazy how many people are sharing this, especially like on TikTok, YouTube. It's growing, and I do see like people like you changing the world, and it's happening like little by little, and even more quickly than that. So thank you. I just want to say thank you for doing all of this.
Oh, you're so welcome. I am really like giddy with what's going on right now, because
Yeah,
you know
it's crazy.
I'm 52. I was born in 1971, and I just thought I was the only crazy one out there. Like
Yeah.
I didn't recognize anything that felt like me around myself, and I was like, "What the fuck kind of place
Yeah.
did I end up in?" And so, yeah, going through the Cold War in like Europe, and then finally finding stuff like Dolores Cannon,
Hmm.
and now I get to witness other people stepping into that part of themselves, and people coming into my office with similar experiences, or because the first part of a QHHT session, we talk to a person about their current life, and there
Yeah.
are so many people that have remarkable experiences that are undeniably, talking about another realm, a spirit realm, like really beautiful things. Like I had a woman come in just last week, and she remembered being visiting like a family friend, and in the middle of the night, this person's baby physically came flying into the room, and nestled itself into the nook of her arm. And
Hmm.
she was like, "Did I dream this? What the hell was going on?" Like, this baby came flying at me. And she asked about it the next morning, like, and they acted like, "Oh, we don't know." And then we talked to the higher self, and the higher self said that this baby, um, was from another planet and is very special and had these powers, and it recognized her and her spirit, and so it wanted to connect with her. And so I asked, "Well, where did you guys meet?" And it explained that they had a life on Pluto. I was like,
Hmm.
"Pluto, like in our solar system?" And it just said like very, very far away. And it explained, that there was life on Pluto, and that's where they met. So, but to like illustrate, I'm sorry, I'm getting on a sidebar here.
Oh, no, no, please, I
To
don't
illustrate
mind.
that there's so many people now that have real life experiences that cannot be explained within the context of our, linear
Right.
mind, what we've learned. And also, what I wanted to add is like, because you're talking about like how everything happens all at once, and it is like that.
Hmm.
Technically, there is no such thing as past lives, and when we do a regression, it's really sort of bridging into another congruent,
Yeah.
like life that happens at the same time. But what I'm also, and it really influenced me as well, like when I talk to a person's higher self, they always say like, no matter how horrible the life is, that a person opted into it, or their soul did.
Yeah.
um,
That's
and
what I
that
understand.
the earth experience, is for many is a very coveted space to be, because of this unique structure that we have here, that we can have the perception that time is linear, and that we can go through this life. It's a very sort of limited focus from the perspective of the soul, but it allows us to learn through the contrast and the duality that we find in the 3D experience. And it's not found anywhere else. And Earth is very coveted because there's free will here, and there is such a wide variety of experiences here. Um, and I mean, it's kind of a sidebar, but like I remind myself of this when I'm watching
Hmm.
like some kind of cat meme online, and I'm just laughing. And it's like, this is the shit that I came here for, to laugh
Yeah.
at cat memes. Like, where else can I get this?
Yeah, it's crazy to see what people come up with, and I don't mean crazy in a bad way. It's just amazing how there's so many different perspectives and how people come up with so many different things on the internet. And it does surprise me whenever I see like a TikTok, a YouTube video, a meme or a short or whatever it is, and it's just so fascinating. Like that one guy who even takes like cat weird talking whenever they're talking and turns it into music, and it's just amazing
I
how
know
we
that
can.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going on tour. Like, is it? Oh, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he's awesome. I'm like,
He's
oh my
awesome.
god,
Yeah.
that's incredible. And it's just it's just crazy. Like there's so many like beautiful people doing so many things, like, oh, I never would have thought of that, and that's so cool. But then when somebody does it, it inspires someone else to do something, and then it just like domino effect. So it's kind of amazing. And even though we do have negative experiences here, it's all for a reason, and there is a purpose, and there are as many reasons as why someone would choose this experience as there are people, as I understand it. And there's another book that I've read through. I'm not completely finished with his reading all of his books, but Dr. Robert Schwartz, he's another hypnotherapist. But what makes him unique is that he worked with mediums while doing the regression sessions, and different mediums. Some could communicate with animals. Some are good at connecting with the spirit guides and doing different things. And he sticks more to not from the supernatural or UFOs and stuff, even though it does come up sometimes. He actually talks more about why a person would choose a particular lifetime, especially something hard like, rape is brought up, or murder, or maybe they have a really severe physical disability, and
Mm.
why a soul would choose to do something like that. And there are reasons for it. So, and I highly recommend anyone watching to read Dolores Cannon, read Robert Schwartz. It's a lot, but it starts to make more sense,
Yeah.
especially with all the stuff going on now. And it's only getting, I don't want to say crazy, but it is getting more interesting,
Yeah.
because even just like 2 days ago, a day ago, you had a private, for people who consider this woo woo, that you had a private UFO hearing with the oversight committee, and Congresswoman Annapurna Luna. She had mentioned, to now that David Grush has come out and said all this, what they were shown in there made him more credible. And she said, he never called them extraterrestrials or aliens. He called them interdimensional beings. And she said, I can't say much, but pay attention to that. And that's what Dolores has been saying for years. That's what
Mm.
other people have been saying, channelers and other sensitive psychic mediums. And I've also had my own personal experiences, a couple of abduction. I do want to get a session. So if I'm ever in LA, I'm going to go see you. Um,
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
yeah, because I want to know. I've had some conscious, and then some where I literally felt like I was lifting out of the bed and I blank. No, I have no idea what happened. At first there was fear, but then I let go and I remembered everything that I've been learning, and I was like, there's nothing to be afraid of. As soon as I let go, it just felt like love, peace, that I was being taken care of, and then I was put back, but I have no recollection of what happened,
Oh,
why I
that's
was
fine
taken.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. So that's something I've been interested in. Me and a couple of my friends. Leslie couldn't be here. She definitely wants to learn QHHT herself, so she can do that. But yeah, sorry I went on a rant, but
No, it's great. And I want to reiterate like that our souls do choose the experiences,
yep.
even the very, very challenging ones. I've had a
Hmm.
couple of that myself. And yeah, it's often like sometimes, somebody comes into my office and they've had just a shit life, and it's, I'm sitting there
Yeah.
crying with them. And then, I might talk to their guardian angel and they might say like, yeah, she is an angelic being and she wanted a crash course in being human. So we told her not to stack her plate too high, but she did. And the point of it was to increase the capacity of compassion. It's a very loving place that these angelic beings come from, but to learn compassion through and empathy through the harshness here. It's like when we come out of that life, our soul sparkles with an extra wisdom, and it's coveted. Like people like go, oh, I want that too. Like that kind of expansion, that kind of learning. um, and it's also because these people that go through so much, they often are here to bring a lot of wisdom and evolution. So
Yeah.
to have gone through that and to be so relatable to other people that are going through the same issues, this is a very powerful way of connecting and helping people to move through these traumatic experiences and find their own inner light. And
Right.
that's usually what's explained as the life purpose of why these people are coming here.
Yeah, and that's something that comes up in Robert Schwartz's books too. He mentions that also, and there are times, like, to give some people an understanding. There was one particular woman who came in and she was disfigured, like severely, and she, in her life, she wasn't born that way. She was just at work one day and they received a package in the mail, and it was a bomb, and it blew up in her hands. Didn't kill her, but she lost fingers. Her face got disfigured, and by the time she reached Dr. Schwartz, she had already forgiven the person who had done it, and she was on her spiritual journey. She was awakened. She was totally fine. She wasn't depressed or anything, but she wanted to like get a better understanding of what was going on in the background. And when the spirit guide came through, and she was also talking herself, her soul had in previous lifetimes or concurrent lifetimes um, had always helped people, but always in the background. And she didn't want to have this repeat session of lives trying to learn certain lessons, just like you explained. She wanted a crash course, and nobody forces you from the soul's perspective into these lifetimes. Nobody forces you or shames you or anything like that. You choose. And she's like, I just want to get it over with. I want to come here, do this lesson, and then, move on. And they're like, are you sure? And she said yes. And she went through this lifetime, and she learned a lot. And she learned about forgiveness, love, self-love, especially given the circumstances. And it's pretty amazing, but not everyone's life is like that. And tell me if you believe this to be true. As I understand it, sometimes we plan a particular lesson in life, and we may tell our spirit guides or our spirit team, hey, if I don't get this by a certain point, or if it's not happening and I really want to get it in this lifetime, help out, please. And they will. And sometimes helping out may come in unforeseen circumstances that may seem traumatic. From what he's learned, Dr. Schwartz, he said that it doesn't always have to happen that way. If you pay attention, if you listen
Yeah.
to your intuition and stuff, but some people don't, and that's usually when they have the plan B, and sometimes it's unpleasant, but it's all for helping us grow.
Yeah.
Would you find that to be the case?
Yeah, this is what I found out as well. And it also includes like illness or
Yeah.
accidents with the body. Um, and I want to be clear about this because sometimes it's being brought to people's attention as if they are not getting it or they're doing something wrong or it's their fault
Right.
that they are dealing with these things. And it's not like that at all. We come here and we're so shut down and disconnected from our own intuition. So um, your soul might have opted, into the experience of being able to expand in one's intuition and to experience as part of themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
then if that's not happening naturally, then, we might get a physical illness to deal with that, to slow down and to be able to listen to
Yeah.
what happens on the inside. So yeah, often crises is used as a tool for a person to finally relate to themselves.
Right.
I've experiences in my own life, unpleasant experiences that, like my spiritual awakening was very, very unpleasant, but it was needed, or else I wouldn't have, done it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be on this path.
Yeah. And it is interesting because I've heard from so many people personally that have gone through things in their life, and then, at the time it was unpleasant, but, years later, after they've had time to grow, they're like, wow, like if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't think this way. I wouldn't have done this. And it was a part of the journey. And even some have said that, like it was needed, or like, I wouldn't be who I am today if that didn't happen. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, I did have another question for you. Have you, because Dolores has brought this up a couple of times, have you ever had, this is in regards to illness, because I know that, as she says, that a lot of times the subconscious or the soul, the higher mind, in order to get your attention, it will sometimes give you an illness so that you can start focusing. Because I know that some people will be like, oh, I don't have time for this. I can't do this. I don't have time. But then you're given some kind of an illness or whatever it is to make time. Now you have to like take the time out to think or go inside or do the shadow work. Or have you had any miraculous healings or anything like that? Like maybe somebody came in with a condition. I mean, she mentioned in one of her books someone had like a rash that would not go away no matter what, because going to the doctors, taking pills, nothing would work until she actually got regressed and went into a hypnotherapy session.
Yeah, this is a normal occurrence, not just in my office, but Dolores' students all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
like yesterday, I had a woman who had neck pain, and there were discs bulging, and so
Ooh.
the higher self first stretched out the spinal column, and then I asked again, like, will this like eradicate the discomfort that she's been feeling? What about the bulging discs? Can you help with those? And so it was pushing it back in. Like a month ago, the higher self explained that the breast cancer that a woman was dealing with was really her friend to, it was her friend to help her. Crap, I forgot the details.
I
It was
think I
like,
saw that video.
oh yeah, I posted about it. Yes.
Yeah, my mom had breast cancer too, and
I think it
that's
was
why I sent that to her, because she's opening up too to all this. So
nice. Yeah, that she's opening up. And I think it
yeah.
was regarding to love herself or something. I forgot what it was. I had a woman, and I posted about this as well. She had had LASIK surgery in the past for her eyes, and then it was her eyes were deteriorating. She was scheduled for another LASIK surgery. And so the higher self healed her eyes, and she came out of the session completely like 20/20 vision. Another person had, he thought he was overweight. He was a little stocky, his build. Higher self explained that he had taken on weight because in his mind this was unattractive, and so it was like a buffer between him and being in another relationship, being emotionally intimate with somebody, because he was dealing with self rejection, being a gay man, and being told that he was bad and all that stuff. So he packed on the weight, human growth hormone. I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of going about it. Why do you do that? It said, well, we cannot change the body, like make him like very different, but turning on this gene would help him to grow an inch. This is a 37, 40s, like in his 40s, I think he was, and redistribute the muscle and fat composition of his body. And so it did all that, and of course released the self rejection that was still there. And then I texted him like 2 weeks later about like, hey, did you get your session recording? And he explained that he had lost 14 pounds without doing anything.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I find that weight loss and vision issues are often like, I get a lot of those people and they get help with it quite a bit. And this, yeah, this happens quite often. Like it's really miraculous that we all have this connection to source. And once people can tap into it, finding out as to why, what's the message behind what's going on, and then understanding that, um, and then it can be released. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Like when I asked, oh, so having explained this, is there any more purpose to this issue? And it goes, no. Well, can you remove it? Sure. And they get to work and take it out.
That's pretty fascinating to have like miraculous healings and stuff. And I try to use everyone as an example, like just reading about these experiences. I try to reflect on myself, on something that I might be blind to or not willing to admit. And being, and I know that it's difficult for some, like sometimes you have to face your ego and you have to, especially to say if you're wrong about something, could I have done something differently? But just so that, um, I would prefer not to go through something like bad or anything, or something that would make me uncomfortable. But I know that it's there for a purpose, even if it does. But I just want to help people understand this, as well as for myself to help myself grow more honestly.
Yeah, and this is really what life is about here. This is what we came here for,
Yeah.
to learn through these very sort of crude and dense circumstances. For myself, like a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with major depression. Like I had suicidal thoughts,
Hmm.
and I was medicated. I got like antidepressants and stuff for a while, and what I looking back at it now, it was really like a burnout for me. I'd been doing this work 5 days a week, um, 6, 7, 8 hour long sessions, and I was still in sort of a people pleasing mode. I was
Yeah.
trying to accommodate my clients and to make sure they got the best experience, without being able to listen to my own boundaries and my own, sensitive, energetic anatomy that I have. And so as a result of this, I've had to restructure my presence in a session, the way I hold space, and to condense it into the like 4 hour time frame that it really is meant to be happening in. Yeah, and of course, I didn't want to have that depression or go through that, but coming out of it, my life feels amazing right now.
Yeah.
And being able to take better care of myself is really helpful.
Yeah. And for me saying that, like I've gone through similar thoughts, and that was in a time before all of this understanding, like it was before I was looking into any of this stuff. And I was in the victim mentality mindset. So it was just like that for me. But learning about this stuff can really help you. And uh, Robert Schwartz and Dolores talk about this, help you kind of take accountability and give you purpose and realize that you came here for something. And it's very empowering, once you start looking into it. Um, and I wanted to ask, because I found it was in one of the first videos that was sent to me. Somebody sent me one of your videos, and that's how I found you. But you were regressing someone, and it seemed like they were regressing into what I would call a future life, or because they were like talking about the new Earth stuff
Oh yeah.
that people are talking about, and she
Mm-hmm.
was explaining about how jobs aren't jobs as we understand them, and once we get to that point, because that's where we're like heading. Um, it's more about who you are as a person, what you love to do, and everything's like supporting you to do that. Have you had many cases like that, or um, what
Yeah,
else did they have to share?
yeah, it comes up quite a bit. That and it's not. There seems to be different options or different. Like sometimes I hear about this completely different planet that's being readied for souls that want to experience like 5D consciousness, and then
Mhm.
sometimes I'm hearing that this is happening on planet Earth. So I don't. Yeah, my human mind. I'm not quite sure.
Me either. I get it.
um, yeah, I remember.
I've heard both.
Yeah, I remember one session with somebody whose soul just came straight from source, didn't have a lot of experience here on Earth, and the soul remembered being in source and hearing the sound that was indicative of like atomic explosions of Earth, and this was like a call to action for her for her and her husband now to come to Earth to help out. And this is what happened to a lot of souls. This is a moment where a lot of sort of higher evolved souls came in. Um, and shit, what was I talking about? Oh, New Earth, yes. And so
Yeah.
she was describing that she saw like the old Earth as very dirty and polluted, and it was like crumbling and being sucked away, and this new beautiful Earth that was green and lovely come out. And this is explained like over and over and over again that there is this move towards a more peaceful, heart-centered, sort of unified experience that is happening for the souls that want this. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, some people come in with questions like, "Am I going to go? Like, what else do I need to do?" Your soul's already decided like what kind of experience it wants to have. So it's not about being good enough now or trying to like, be perfect or do the right things to like not miss the boat. Your soul's
Right.
already decided, and even if you weren't going to go, like I think I'm going to be here on Earth for a bit because I like helping out. This is part of my soul.
Right.
To help with the transition. So to be in this dense environment and to do what I can is like fun to me. So yeah, the soul has already decided what it's going to do. So to not worry about it, to live your life and to love yourself.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned like, like the nuclear bomb, and then like it was like a call to action, because historically after that happened, not that we didn't have UFO sightings back then, because there have been UFO sightings for
Ages.
ages, like thousands of years, but there was an increase of UFO sightings like right after the first bomb went off, and I find that fascinating. It's almost like everyone was like, "Wait, what are they doing?" And but I think it's also part of the process, and Terrence McKenna, who would talk about taking psilocybin, and he mentioned that when he took mushrooms, the mushrooms had showed him that um, getting to like universal awareness, getting to that next level of like civilization isn't like a super smooth process or anything like that. Things are going to look crazy, and we're going to see weird things, and people are going to think differently, and all this. It's like this evolutionary process that perpetuates, and he's like, that's what it's going to look like. And people are going to start asking more questions about what's going on, because it's going to be, the world is going to seem a lot stranger than what they had first initially imagined. And that's what, everyone's calling in the spiritual community, the Great Awakening, and everyone's waking up and seeing the corruption and deciding that they don't want to be a part of that anymore. So it is interesting that you're bringing that up, and it's right in alignment with what I understand and what I found in my research. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, and it keeps explaining that we are in the thick of it now, that this is what's happening. The old structures, the fear-based structures are breaking down, and, and something new and beautiful is growing out of that. And, sometimes it explains that we are having sort of fifth dimensional experiences while being here, that when people learn to love themselves, that they sort of cross over into higher dimensions and then go back to the 3D. And that the more that this happens, the more these pockets will be more sustainable and stay. And, with that comes it's like for myself, like when I became aware of like how animals are treated, like a part of the food staple. Yeah. Is that how you say it? Like I no longer wanted to partake in that. It's such a damaging and exploitative way of treating animals. So I became vegan. So in my consciousness, it was no longer acceptable that harm was being done to other sentient living beings, and I didn't want to partake in it anymore. And I think as an example of it'll become unacceptable to just be sort of callous with exploiting others, other cultures, animals, the planet, or using stuff that we need in our lives that have come from those sources. And we will find once that becomes unacceptable, we will find other solutions, because we will no longer partake in the old ways, the fear-based and trauma-based way of thinking.
It's often said too that if everyone in the world could have a near-death experience, there would be peace on Earth. But I do know that that doesn't happen that way, because there's still certain lessons that have to be learned a certain way, which I completely understand. But it's that universal awareness, and that's what I try to explain to people about benevolent beings. And I also understand that there are other beings that would be considered negative, but that's what it's like being in a duality. And that's why we see it everywhere. But it's that once we get the universal awareness and we get that we don't actually die, that we're all connected. And when you hurt another being, whether it's an animal, a tree, or another person, and it is hurting yourself, because you know inherently that there is a life review process also, and you get to become all of those things. And I think that it's happening. It's already happening, and that's that mindset is, a lot of people are becoming vegan now too, and a lot of people, I'm like trying to shift into that. Like I really am. Like me and some people went to go get some vegan food, and a girlfriend went to go get some vegan food, and we're just trying it out. But with not every change is smooth, but at the same time, I am finding things that I like that are completely like animal product free. Like it doesn't have, and it does put my mind at ease. And I don't know how much time you have left, but I wanted to bring up like
I'm
two
good to
more
go.
things.
Yeah, I'm good to go. Yeah.
Okay. There was, I wanted to ask, did you ever have QHHT done on you?
Oh yeah, I just got one about a month ago. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What is there anything you're willing to share? Or?
Oh yes. So I've had like 12 of them, like over the years. and they've ranged from very like sort of, as Dolores calls them, digging potato human ones, but also alien ones. And in this last one, I cherish it so much. I did it with my friend Sarah Breskman, and if you could get her to come on your podcast, she's very open to stuff like this. She's amazing.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, and so I can remember the question. Like I just took part in Disclosure Fest at Las Vegas. I was part of a panel, and I noticed that my colleagues, they're very tight and they have a lot of interaction going on between them. And I don't see that in my own life. Like I don't partake in groups very much. And no, I miss out on business opportunities that way. So I was kind of like down on myself, like, why am I this way? And so I went into a lifetime where I was in a humanoid body, but it was like shorter and kind of more like hobbit looking. And I was walking around on this other planet. And I was doing this to, they were sort of humanoid beings, but they were very primitive. And I was not working with them because my feeling apparatus was too sensitive for the work that I needed to be doing. So I couldn't interact with these like harsher energies. And what my job was, or what I did, was walking the land to sort of upgrade and encode the grid system, the energetic grid system of the planet. And the next theme was me being on this large spaceship, and I was with all these other very different beings. They were not looking like me. And everybody had their own task, and we were all helping like other planets evolve and doing our own thing. And I was known for my sort of emotional wisdom. I felt like this, like almost I had this big, it wasn't an instrument, but this energy that was very refined and very fine-tuned for me to do the work that I did, to go to the planet and to sort of spiritually Febreze like the grid system. And and this is part of my presence here on the planet. I am a typical sort of second waver from the perspective of Dolores Cannon's like the three waves of volunteers, to be here to hold space, to anchor a certain energy, but also to sort of clear and cleanse. And I've had many experiences in my life that sort of point to that. And so it explained also why why it's not always, why I kind of shy away from group stuff, because of like we're all human and we have our own shadows to resolve. And I'm super sensitive to it. And it's not to say that I don't have any shadows, but it's just like, for me to be able to do the work, it's better for me to be in nature and to be sort of more reclusive. And that's what my life looked like, and it explained it to me, like I really felt that way of being and why it was there. So I was able to claim that part of myself rather than to judge it.
Yeah. And you sound like me too, because I did not see myself doing any of these podcasts or doing any of this stuff. Like I was into this stuff, but I kept it all to myself, only told certain people, and I would see people connecting, and I was like, wow, I wish I could do something like that, or I wish I could connect with some of these people. And even having the opportunity to speak with Patricia Pearsall and Grant Cameron, and like, I never, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of crazy, but I mean, now doing this podcast with you is pretty amazing. It's an honor to do this with you. And I hope you don't mind. I hope we can have you on another one. And I have some, I know once my friends see this who have their own channels, they're going to want to talk to you, but
please have me on. I really enjoy talking about this. So
yeah, me too. Like, it's my passion to talk about all of this stuff. So.
And I'm really helped with the questions that you're asking, because it allows me to like look at things from another perspective and ask questions of my own, what I've experienced so far. This is really nice.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've had similar strange experiences as well. Uh, some people know this already, but I've had things with like mediumship where I connected with spirit, and I would tell people things, and I thought I was going crazy, but I then validated it with people, and they're like, "How do you know that?" Things like that. And even a death one time where they told me someone was going to transition soon, and it ended up actually happening a few weeks later after I had forgotten about it. And I've been told by strangers, mediums that I don't even know, that they're like, oh, you're not from here, right? Things like that. And even a stranger when I was a child pulling my mom aside to tell her something in private about me. And my mom was like, what?
Yeah.
And this is before I was into this. This was before she was into this.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy how that all works.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
You're
It's
reflecting
crazy.
some of my
Yeah.
clients' experiences, and
Yeah. That's why I want to do a session. It is a goal of mine. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's so nice that we get to share these experiences and then cover those human experiences as well. Because I mean, what I'm hearing and what my understanding is that these things are normal to have the sort of psychic connectedness to the all that is, and that's normal. We've just been so shut down for millennia, but we're coming out of it now. So it's really helpful to have visible examples, people speaking up about experiences, to normalize it, to upgrade the landscape that we've been living in, to include those experiences into the normal.
Yeah, and I think that talking about it and giving people space to be open, because I'm sure there are so many people who are like I was, who've had experiences but don't really want to share them because they're worried about being judged by others or thinking that they're alone. So I think it opens up the space, and then as people talk about it, like Cameron was saying, that that's how we bring about that consciousness to happen, because then more and more people, like domino effect, will start talking about it, and then before you know it, we've shifted. Um, and this is just my theory, but I think that's the whole timeline thing. My theory is like, I think that's what the Mandela effect is. Like when people notice these little differences, like, wait a minute, but it's large groups of people noticing the difference. And it's just like, I know I saw it this way. And why would a whole bunch of other people remember this event this way? But you're telling us, oh, that never happened in this reality. So that's really interesting. And I guess before we end, is there anything you would like to say to the audience about? It could just be a message for humanity or anything like that.
Sure. So I want to share what I hear in probably every session, and that is, it's always to love yourself and to pull that out of the abstract. What does that look like? We've been sort of trained to have our focus rest outside of ourselves, our to-do lists, our work, taking care of kids, family. And so how it says to do this is to find some solitary time and space. Could be meditation or just sitting on your, a chair in your backyard, looking up at the trees and the sun. To do that, because in the solitary space, you get to feel and hear and see yourself, the deeper part of yourself. Then also to try and build in as many joyful experiences as you can, and specifically not forcing yourself to feel joy in a shitty experience, but to give yourself experiences that to dedicate space and time to doing things that you really enjoy doing, because that really is prioritizing yourself, to let yourself know that you give a damn. And the more that you put yourself in joyful experiences, the more you get to be in relationship with yourself. It's like the antidote to the physical crises and challenges. When you learn to really listen to yourself and be with yourself, this is very empowering. To be in nature as well, because nature just is. It does not demand us or require us to be anything different than what we already are. So it's good to be in that space and to feel yourself as such. Again, to recognize yourself and to be in relationship with yourself. There's like 4 or 5, but I can't think of the other ones. So I guess these are the most important for today. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah, divine timing and all that. And thanks for that. And where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm based in Los Angeles, so I do my sessions in person. Group sessions are done online, so you can find all this information on my Instagram account, and it's my first name, Jeroen, and then my affirmation is love. Jeroen is love on Instagram, and there's like a Linktree link. You can click on it, and you find all the events.
I'll put the link up for you too.
Okay, good. Or my website is my first name and then QHHT, JeroenQHHT.com.
Perfect. And thank you, Jeroen. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for taking the time out to speak with me. And for everyone else, we'll catch you guys on the other side.
It was great connecting with you, and I look forward to being here again.
Thank you.